Hey everybody, so we're doing something a bit different today. Around a year ago, I started making little, lower effort bonus videos for Patreon and Nebula, saying I would maybe start to release a few of them publicly after a year. And, you know, this is one of those videos. I'm not sure how many of these boys I'll end up releasing, I guess it depends on the response, but I think it could be a nice change of pace. An extra video every few months, every so often, though this month it's my only video because I failed to do my job. At any rate, this bonus episode was made the month I wrote my video about the garbage Shane Dawson makeup documentary, which you can find on my YouTube channel. What you're about to see is a bit rambly and kinda dated feeling, but also, who cares? If you like this video, you can get way more bonus boys, most of which won't be made public, by going to my Patreon or signing up to Nebula for like 15 bucks a year. Okay, on with the show. Hey everybody, so on at least 3 separate occasions across his videography, Shane Dawson argues the position that 9/11 Trutherism kinda makes sense. That there is at least some reason to believe that 9/11 was an inside job and that the narrative we have been fed is a lie. He says it's possible, though a bit far-fetched, that the planes that hit the towers were CGI.
First, let's look at this clip of what people are calling ghost plane.
The plane appears to pass through steel columns and the steel and concrete floors, like a ghost. It doesn't twist, bend, slow down, break, or explode.
Now this plane goes right through the building, like a knife through butter.
Says it seems likely that there were bombs in the World Trade Center, that the planes did not single-handedly knock down the tower.
I don't know if I believe the theory that all the planes on the news were just CGI'd. That seems a little far-fetched, but I definitely believe there were bombs. I mean, come on.
And he says that given the number of cartoons depicting planes hitting the Twin Towers, 9/11 might be a case of predictive programming. That is to say, the government intentionally primed us to think 9/11 could happen, so we'd be less surprised when it did.
Now, I know what you're thinking, Shane, this isn't a theory. Yes, it happened. People were predicting 9/11 all over the place. Well, the theory is that all of this, the movies, the ads, the cartoons, are all a part of something called predictive programming. So here is the definition of predictive programming. It's a subtle form of psychological conditioning provided by the media to acquaint the public with planned societal changes to be implemented by our leaders. If and when these changes are put through, the public will already be familiarized with them and accept them.
In this video, I will not be taking any of these arguments seriously. For one thing, the world of 9/11 Trutherism, the nature of its claims as well as its political motivations, is extremely complicated. Far too complicated for a Nebula Plus video about Shane Dawson, of all things. But more importantly, Dawson's claims are just not worthy of the effort, I think. Like, look at that last thing he said there, that cartoons depicting a plane hitting the Twin Towers may have been produced by government mandate so as to prime us for the real thing. This is a massive, decades-long conspiracy with no evidence behind it. Like, why aren't more people talking about the government asking them to show 9/11 in their cartoon? B, the events of 9/11 were not seen as normal to the American people. It was unbelievably traumatic and emotion-fueled. Nobody, and I mean nobody, was like, well, I saw it in a children's show one time, so I wasn't too surprised. And C, if 9/11 was an inside job, why would they want it to be normal to the American people in the first place? Like, what was even the point if everyone was just gonna be like, it happens? What I'm trying to say here is, Dawson clearly does not care about having a rigorous convo about 9/11, so I don't either. At least, not right now. No, the reason I bring all this up is to ask a simple question. Why is it that when you hear about Shane Dawson getting canceled, nobody ever talks about his crackpot 9/11 Trutherism for kids that he didn't even think through for even a moment before he spouted about it online. We could ask this exact same question about the topic of my last video, right? Like, Shane Dawson's Jeffree Star documentary is gross, really gross. It's 8 straight hours of a multimillionaire trying to manipulate his child and teenage audience into believing that them supporting him, buying his makeup palette, is some kind of beautiful, important moment for them. It has no substance, it contributes nothing of value to speak of, it is simply an exercise in nonsense mega-capitalist apologia, punctuated every 3 minutes by a plug for cosmetics. So again, I ask, why is it that this documentary is never brought up when people cancel Shane Dawson? And I think the answer here comes down to one thing. Cancel culture, as it's come to be known, is just not as simple as we might think it is. It is not just the act of canceling someone, enumerating the things they did that we disagree with and think are bad or harmful. It is also, and perhaps more crucially, a genre of online storytelling. A way of constructing narratives that is constrained by various tropes, expected to follow certain patterns, meant to entertain us in certain ways. And to show you what I mean by that, let's talk about D'Angelo Wallace's video where he cancels Shane Dawson, the most iconic and comprehensive video about Shane Dawson ever made. So in the video, Wallace goes through Dawson's career with a fine-tooth comb, enumerating for us in excruciating detail how the creator has been a deeply problematic figure for a long time. Wallace talks about Shane's racism, his history of minstrelsy, he talks about his pedophilia and zoophilia jokes, and he bookends the piece talking about his cruel and callous reaction to Toddy Westbrook's claim that she is a survivor of sexual abuse. The central claim of the video is that Dawson has a history of believing awful things, having awful attitudes, and that now this aspect of his character has surfaced yet again.
Now, I'm not saying that he'll never work again, or he won't keep making money, or even that his views are going to go down. I'm saying that his career as Shane Dawson, the persona of Shane Dawson, is over.
So, if we asked, how does this video work? What are its major aesthetic aims? I think we could give 2 kind of similar answers. First, it is about incongruence. As Wallace points out, Dawson's current brand is one fixated on his status as nice guy. Shane's an empath, he has a tender spirit, he wears his heart on his sleeve. Because of this branding, it's on its face interesting to see where this persona is artificial. Dawson acts like he's such a good guy, but also ran what amounts to an online minstrel show, and constantly makes light of pedophilia. These 2 traits do not get along, and as such, juxtaposing them makes for great content. Second, the video is about unmasking. Even as Wallace's video was made about one of the most famous YouTubers on the platform, it nonetheless feels like it is an act of exploration, going back through an archive, unearthing that which has been hidden, revealing terrible secrets. Now, looking at these 2 aesthetic aims, we can start to understand why it wouldn't make sense for D'Angelo Wallace to talk about Shane Dawson's 9/11 conspiracy theories. Those theories are not incongruous with anything. They're a huge part of Dawson's recent work, his brand, his identity. To point it out as some enduring issue would be to go against the core engagement of the video. The same could be said of Dawson's recent makeup documentary. Every problem we might have with that series, that it is manipulative trash that seeks only to reaffirm the notion that the rich getting astronomically richer is a just and beautiful process, is right there at its surface. There is no unveiling or unmasking, no sense of exploration. Everything is just there. It's obvious. So again, to talk about it would be to go against the very essence of Wallace's video. Now, I want to make it clear that all this is not meant as a D'Angelo Wallace call-out post or something like that. I'm not talking about this video because it's bad. It's not bad. The video is well crafted, well written, intense, funny, worthwhile, influential. It is not some major flaw with it that Wallace talked about certain aspects of Dawson's career and not others. That said, I see this as a recurring pattern in the way cancel culture works across the internet. Its interest in finding hypocrisy and incongruence, in unveiling hidden and unlikely messages. And that pattern does worry me. For one, there's the obvious. Cancel culture is positioned as a form of justice in online spaces, and it's important to understand that as much as it might be a form of justice, it is also an aesthetic and a genre. And the intersection between entertainment and law is always something we should think about critically, I think. But much more important to me, I'm worried about the way that cancel culture is centered so exclusively around personal failings and character flaws. When Shane Dawson put on blackface 1,000,000 times a few years ago, that's something we can point to and say, that's awful. He did a terrible, stupid thing, and he's not a good guy. He is problematic, and I mean that word here very earnestly. But when he does his crackpot 9/11 conspiracy theories, when he manipulates children into believing they're watching a documentary when all they're watching is a bullshit, boring ad, it's not problematic, at least not on the face of it, but it is a problem, and a systemic one. It speaks to the way that online media works, what we think appropriate conduct looks like, what values we think our culture ought to represent. It's a problem, and we should talk about it too. So, that's the end of this Nebula Plus video. This one's really different from the first one. In the sense that it's not funny, but it is extremely rambly. Honestly, I think there's a lot of ideas here that I'm going to try to explore in more full-length videos. This is kind of a fun first shot rant type thing, I guess. But I hope you liked it enough. Have a great day. I hope you like my videos on Patreon and Nebula, and I'll see you next time. Bye.